This event is sponsored by Miro. Miro is the online whiteboard platform where product teams can work together effectively. If you don't know where to start, it's packed with over 50 templates for product teams. Whether you need a Kanban, mind map, retrospective, product roadmap, or user story map, we've got you covered. Try it for free.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Kuyoro, and today we're going to be talking about managing products in a pandemic. We have an agenda today. It's a pretty slim and trim agenda, but I intend to go over my own professional bio, and then I'll talk about how the COVID-19 pandemic is changing the way business is done. And also I'll move on next to how product managers should react in such an environment. And finally, I'll talk about key takeaways and action items that product managers can take as a result of this pandemic. So a little bit about myself. I've been a product manager for over a decade now, and I love product management. I actually tell people that, I sleep, eat, and drink product management. And that's because it's a role and profession that I enjoy, that allows me to have and use both my business skills as well as my technical skills in solving problems for different customers or different businesses. And being an entrepreneur myself, it's something that as a product manager you do on a daily basis, because people say you are the CEO of the product, and you have to come up with creative and innovative ways to deliver solutions that provide value to your customers, whoever they might be. So I love football a lot. I love football and soccer. For football, American football, I happen to be a Seattle Seahawks fan. And soccer, I follow the Premier League a lot, and I am a Chelsea fan. I have an 11-month-old son, and I tell people that that's my second full-time job, being the chief data officer to my 11-month-old son, who is a bundle of joy for me. So let's talk about the situation we find ourselves now. We being product managers and every professional in the world. It's a global crisis that some people said no one was able to predict. And even for those who were able to predict this environment, it has changed a lot of ways businesses are being conducted today. Whether you're a startup, whether you're a mature organization, we are hearing the term the new norm, which is describing the way people are doing businesses. It's describing the way consumers are behaving. And as a result, product managers can't keep doing the same things we've been doing in the past and expecting a new result. As a result of the environment we find ourselves today, we might have to adapt and modify several things, whether it's your business process, whether it's your pricing strategy. You just can't think that the world pre-COVID is the same as the world we live in right now. And even the world in post-COVID, we will need to adapt to make sure that we do not, stop delivering value to customers. So, a lot of technology companies are, like I said, are having to adapt. There's a lot of changes going on. Some companies are, laying off their employees. Some stores and certain businesses are closing down. As part of the new norm as well, we're seeing a lot of people working from home now and having to adapt to, new productivity tactics. Working from home is not necessarily the same as, being in the office, where you are in the environment and surrounded by, your coworkers or your managers and your boss. And so gathering information and coming up with ways to be productive is very important in the world that we find ourselves right now. And so as product managers, I wouldn't say we have to be fearful, but for sure you would have to change your product strategy and also how you relate with your customers. And I intend to go into those details to make sure that at the end of the day, COVID will go, but the world we find ourselves in right now requires us to change our tactics. So how should product managers adapt? How should product managers be able to be effective and keep doing their job, but being able to know that the situation that we find ourselves, the economic climate is not the same, and so as a result, you might have to modify or innovate in certain ways. So I intend to go into some of those plans and strategies today, and hopefully they're helpful for us product managers. So the first thing is the roadmap. A roadmap in itself. So the first point here says, we have to adjust as product managers our roadmap and metrics. The roadmap is a guide, it's a compass for a product development team. It helps determine the things we are working on now, what's next, what's up for the future, right? And there's so much school of thought out there as to how further out your product management roadmap should be. There's thinking around, you should have a 5-year roadmap. There's a 3-year roadmap. Some product managers say you don't even have to have a timeline for your roadmap. But, so I tend to think that it depends on the environment you find yourself. And so if you run a startup, or if you're in a startup, your roadmap might always change continually because, you're trying to figure out your business model, things are moving fast, and so it's hard to keep up with a roadmap. Some mature organizations might have roadmaps that are out there, because they can go as far as 5 years or 10 years because they are more stable. But in the world of COVID, there's a lot of uncertainty. It's very difficult to forecast and, predict the future. And we're finding out as product managers, you might have to move, from month to month, quarter to quarter, as opposed to thinking far out. Also, as part of the roadmap planning, we see a lot of situations where your resources might be limited, your budget plans might change. And so some product managers might have to put a pause on, on releases, on technical builds, and because of the fact that the consumers might be not paying for your products, or your product might not be what a consumer might want at this specific point in time. But even though you have or find yourself in such an environment, you shouldn't necessarily stop how you deliver value to your customers, because you don't want to be leapfrogged by your competition. So you might have to make certain assumptions on the forecast you've made, the size of the market, your pricing. Some consumers might not be able to pay for your products, or and then you might have to come up with a revised plan or revised payments so that you can make sure that you don't lose those customers completely. And then also, at the end of the day, it's all about optimization. You want to optimize your product, and you want to make sure that you do it in a strategic form where, things might not be working the way you want them now, but there's always a post-COVID world. And that's why it's always important to not stop research. As product managers, we do both qualitative and quantitative research. And so with qualitative research, you can get ahead with that uncertainty by always talking to your users. There's a balance that needs to happen, between the pre-crisis and the present behavior, but that should inform your hypothesis about the future. And, plus you can continue to learn through this journey over time by checking in week by week, month by month, and into the future. And at the end of the day, that information you get, the data you gather, is able to help you inform your roadmap and make sure that you have a plan that is flexible, but is still able to provide value to your customers. As product managers, communication is very important. And I want to say, even in a COVID world, it's even more than ever, it's more important. Communication is a two-way street, meaning that, there's the internal communication that needs to happen, and also there's the external communication. And so like I said earlier, we are seeing situations where because of COVID, people are having to work from home, right? Social distancing is being enforced. People can't gather as much as they would like to brainstorm or to problem solve or to have effective whiteboarding sessions. So as a result of these limited gatherings that are happening, people are virtual, and you have to find creative ways to make sure that the job still is being done because the job has to get done. So for agile teams or teams that have, you know, certain things that we call stand-ups, right? So a stand-up is a way for the engineer and the product team to be on the same page. So normally these stand-ups are done in person. They last about 10 to 15 minutes. But with the COVID situation, those things might not be possible anymore. And so you don't want to stop getting updates from the engineering team. You don't want to stop getting updates from your QA team. And so as product managers, you might have to find creative ways to have these stand-ups. Or if you find yourself in what we call a pod structure, where in the past you've always had, engineering, product, QA, test in the same room, so that everybody can get the information they want immediately. That might not happen anymore, but that should not stop the interaction that should happen. And so, finding ways, whether it's through Slack or through communication tools, should not stop. And if you need to form groups like in Teams or in certain instant messaging tools, that can help as well. But that's also all about internal communication. You also still have to talk to your immediate, those are your immediate stakeholders, but you also have your indirect stakeholders, like your VP of technology or the VP of sales, if you happen to communicate with these people. As a product manager, you still want to make sure that your stakeholders are aligned, and you want to either do that. There's several ways to do that. You can have weekly updates sent to a group of people. So create an email list that has all these stakeholders and send information to them on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis. But the point and the goal here is to set clear expectations, right? Because you don't want to have surprises for these people. And so if somebody needs to react, they can get the information from the product manager and be able to react accordingly. And then on the external side as well, you have to keep your customers abreast of the things that are happening with your product releases. If there's any changes that need to be done as to your product, new feature development or delays with products, those are the things that you want to make sure that the customer is aware of. And you have to find ways and mediums to do that. Now, I mentioned customers a lot, and at the end of the day, as product managers, it's our ultimate goal to make sure we're delivering value to our customers, whether it's your end user, you might be in the B2C space, or your enterprise customers, if you happen to be in a B2B space. But you also want to make sure that, a lot of times you're still empathizing with your customers, because empathy is one of the key features that product managers should have. During the months that follow, the changing environment will first impact, those in the front line. And those in the front line are your users of your products. They will get impacted by these changes. If you have constrained resources, you might not be able to release faster, and so they might not get your product quickly. If you have products that involve social interactions, those might have to change, and you don't want to be in a situation where your product or your customers are not happy and there's some friction point at the user level. And so as product managers, you want to identify their needs continually, your customers' needs, address those needs in any way, shape, or form. You might not be able to attend to all of them at the same time, but you have to make sure that, that communication doesn't stop. And one of the best ways that this is done today on the product team is, working either with your account management team, your sales team, or your customer success team, because those are the people that are also on the front line with your customers, whether it's the buyers or the users of your product. They hear the feedback about your product, and they often hear about those product requests that come in. And so the challenge normally with product managers is there's usually a gap between how that feedback gets into the organization, so the handoff is not as effective as it should be. And so sometimes things get lost in translation. But as product managers, you want to make sure, like I said earlier, that you want to make sure that you're setting expectations and everybody's aligned. And so developing that relationship with the sales team and account team is very important. But not only are you empathizing with your customer, you also have to empathize with these people as well. And one of the key things that product managers should have or develop is being responsive, because many a times those requests come in for new changes to the product, and it might take several weeks or several months just because there's a lot of things in your backlog. But at the end of the day, two key things here, you want to empathize continually, and you also want to be responsive to your customers. Now, like I said, because of the environment we find ourselves, some consumers might not be able to do certain things. An example would be, some people are not physically able to go into a store, or some people are, because of, the financial situation they find themselves, they might not be able to pay for products. So if you find yourself in a situation where you can help your customers, an example would be, maybe delay payments or create incentives. Those are very helpful, because at the end of the day, customer retention might overtake revenue now, but if you are able to hold on to your customers, those revenues will speak for themselves in the future. Now, the next point here is, as PMs, you should not stop innovating. And some people would think differently here, because some people might say, we are in an environment where we don't have the funds for R&D, and we're keeping our resources, and so we cannot innovate. Sure, that's true, but innovation should not be always expensive. There's several ways to innovate that can be affordable, that can be quick, and help you deliver on the results that you want. So at the end of the day, it's all about figuring out how to be effective, how to be productive, and also making sure that you don't stop innovating, because when that stops, your products can get hurt, your customer base might shrink, and your proposition might not be strong enough for people to be able to pay for your products. So during a crisis like this, it actually fosters the condition for new thinking and doing things differently. And if you understand that as a PM, it can help you seize the opportunity to drive useful change. And so, like I said, it doesn't have to be a big innovation, but it should be something that is innovative, but is still solving a problem for your customer. Because at the end of the day, that's what happens, right? As product managers, we are delivering solutions that can help our customers solve a specific pain point that they might have. So find time for customer research. It doesn't have to be expensive. You can put up quick prototypes, and don't work in a silo. As a product manager, you should often collaborate with the product team to get a fresh outside perspective on how things are going on in the market within your organization, and find those opportunities to innovate. So a lot of innovation is happening right now. An example is, for retail stores that I mentioned earlier, a lot of retail stores in the past might have had customers come into the store to physically buy goods. We're seeing a shift where, brick and mortar stores are moving online, and there's a huge demand in e-commerce activities. I work for Mastercard, and one of the products that we have right now that is getting a lot of adoption is what we call the contactless product. And it's a payment method that lets you make everyday purchases without having to hand your card over to the cashier. So from a safety perspective, it's helpful because you don't have to, as the name implies, it's contactless. You don't have to contact the cashier to make a payment. Another example would be, customer service. It could be a customer service for a bank, or a retail store, or a technology company. where historically people have always had to go into the office to, receive calls and get orders from customers. We're seeing a lot of companies, developing products that like chatbots that leverage, artificial intelligence to answer customer inquiries. The same thing also goes for, retail stores. Retail stores are having to pretty much stock more certain products as opposed to other products. And then as a result of that, software companies in the supply chain are seeing a huge growth in the adoption of their products, because the supply chain of in a COVID world is different from one in a pre-COVID world, and that is growth for them. So at the end of the day, you should not stop innovating, but have what we call a bias for action, right? Crisis demands movement and change, and you don't want to be left behind as a product manager. As product managers, we prioritize, and that should not stop as well when you find yourself in an environment like this, because now more than ever, you need to look at your portfolio and redirect your resources into projects and projects that will deliver the ultimate value. So like I said earlier, you might have started the year saying, oh, we're going to execute on 10 projects. Those 10 projects might be reduced to 3, might be reduced to 1. So you want to take a holistic view of the market and see what's important. And important here is different depending on the environment you find yourself. So there's something that is important, there's something that is urgent, but those things might not be things that will provide value to your customers or add to your bottom line. So if you find yourself in such a situation as a product manager, you might need to update your value proposition. As a company, you might have a vision and a mission statement, which might be fixed, but your value proposition should evolve over time, because if your customers are not happy, it might lead to a customer dissatisfaction or customer issue situations, and you might end up not in a good situation, because people will not want to pay for your products. Your company's reputation might not be good, because what we're seeing is that some companies now are taking what we call shortcuts to be able to get products out there quickly. And so in the short term, that might be good, because yes, you might be able to put your product out there in a shorter period of time, and everything looks all well and good. But if you develop a product that is not stable, or a product that starts to have issues, bugs, and the likes, it comes back to bite you as a product manager. So as a result, you have to be able to have that significant balance. So like I said, if you started the year with a budget of X, amount of dollars, or you said, oh, as a team, we're going to have X number of products or releases, that might have to, be reduced. And so prioritizing should fall into 3 buckets right now. So there's the pre-COVID world, the COVID world, and the post-COVID world. And looking at all those situations and coming up with a clear strategy as to the things that you want to pause, the things you want to resume, and the things you want to refresh. So even though as product managers, you might not be able to have access to a budget and financial planning and the likes, some do, some do not. But you should not be neglected in those conversations, because we are responsible for the what to build, right? And so coming up with the output of the what and then pushing it to the stakeholders within our organization will help determine if it makes sense to work on certain projects or not. Next point is, about leading. As product managers, some people say we are the CEO of products. Some people say, oh, you are not. Whether that's true or not, it doesn't matter. The key thing is that you are a leader. And I say that because the product vision, as a product manager, you are responsible for the product vision, where the product should go. And as such, as a leader, you have to be able to have a clear vision. As a leader, you have to be very influential, even though you don't have direct reports. And as a leader, you should be also strategic. And that should not stop. Your energy levels, even though they might be different, because of the workforce that has changed or the environment you find yourself. But product managers who can appropriately focus the energy of their workforce or the product team towards a clear purpose in resolving this crisis will ultimately find that it provides more than just a wellspring of energy, but also effort that can help you deliver results in the long term. So, and there's certain things you can do. They don't have to be big as a product leader. You can offer personal help or assistance, right? So you might not be in the office with a certain person. You might not have heard from your engineer in a while. Reach out to him, send him an email, send him a Slack, find out if they're doing okay, because sometimes some people can, employees can burn out, or certain things might be happening to them personally. Their family members might be sick, and so in whatever way you can help, reach out to your team members and make sure that everybody's doing okay. That's part of being a good leader as well. It doesn't have to be always about the results you have to deliver on your products, but looking outside that delivery and making sure you also empathize with your team members, not just your customers, is very important. Also, from a data perspective, gathering information, you have to choose your sources of information wisely. A lot of things are in flux right now. A lot of things are changing. And so data that you might get yesterday might change tomorrow. It might disappear, in the next 3 days and the likes. So as much as you want to, analyze the market, analyze the customer, analyze data, do it properly and put in certain scenarios or factors that help you know that as a product manager, things can change, right? Because a lot of things are unpredictable right now. And so being able to account for that unpredictability is very important to help you not get too confident in your results, because you might have projections of numbers or revenue or customers, and those things don't happen because, like I said, a lot of things are in flux right now. And as a leader, as a product manager, you should still stay focused, right? Because you might find out in a situation that opportunities might come as a result of pandemic we are right now. And some people might say, oh, let's go build a software for inventory management because a lot of people are buying grocery now online. Or, oh, we didn't have an effective way for payments on our platform. Let's go and build that payments tool right now. So you can get distracted. But at the end of the day, you have to have a clear strategy. You have to tie it to your product vision, your company vision, and focus on small things, get small wins. And as a result of those small wins, they can help you move on to the next level, as opposed to trying to do so many things at the same time and losing focus. And so as a product leader, that's something that the team will look up to you for, to provide that guidance so that everybody can remain on the same page for the most part. And last but not the least is, like I said earlier, a lot of people are stressed right now. A lot of people have family members that, they've lost. A lot of people have some form of sickness or the other. And even though you're not sick, as a product manager, it's really good to sometimes step back and just relax, relax with your family, relax on your own, take some time off. It's important because you can get stressed, thinking about certain things, deadlines or, customer requests that have come in. But even if it's, taking a few days off work or just, doing certain things like, yoga, meditation, working out. Yes, we have social distancing in place and there's restrictions as to the places you can go. But as product managers, you can find creative ways to stay safe, stay healthy, and also make sure that so much negativity around doesn't affect you, and you don't want that to affect your work. So I would just say that as a product manager, create a work-life balance for yourself. because it's important. You want to stay healthy, because if you're not healthy, you can't provide value for your customers. And so that's it. Like I said, it's a very unstable environment right now for a lot of people, but things will change, and we don't anticipate COVID being here forever. But as a product manager, you have to evaluate things on a day-by-day basis and make sure that you're providing value. So the key takeaways here are, as a product manager, you should be flexible. You can't keep doing things the same way. You have to change the roadmap, set clear expectations. Your metrics, you should reevaluate them because, like I said, there's so much data in flux right now, and you want to take into fact of so many things happening within the economy so that you're not overly optimistic. The second thing is your customers are always the people you deliver value for. So keep doing that, and they should be at the top of your list when it comes to your product strategy, because it's all about your customers. And last but not the least, like I said, create that work-life balance. Take some time off, relax, recharge yourself, and make sure that you're not stressed, because you want to be healthy to be able to collaborate with your team better and also deliver value to your customers. Thank you very much. I hope you've been able to get some information and knowledge that will help you as you explore your product management career, whether you are in the early stages of your career or you're an experienced professional. I hope these tips and information will help you manage your products properly during this period of the pandemic. And hopefully we'll definitely we'll get over it. If you need to contact me, I have my email here, and you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn for any questions you might have or any advice you might need as it relates to product management. Thank you very much.